So just looking at 2b, it says determine the approximate values of the 6 trig ratios for 586. So we're going to need our calculators, so you can take out your calculators, because you're going to want to find sine of 586 degrees, cos of 586 degrees, tan of 586 degrees. Write those to the nearest thousandth, and then do the reciprocals. So what is cosecant of 586 degrees, secant of 586 degrees, and cotangent of 586 degrees. First thing I want to check, if we do sine of 586 degrees, did you get the same answer that I did? Because the first thing we want to check is to make sure that our calculator is in the right mode. Since we're dealing in degrees, we want to make sure our calculator is in degrees. The way to check that is to hit our mode button, and you notice that there's an option to go between radians and degrees. We want to make sure that the degree one is highlighted. Once it's highlighted, you can push enter, and that will make sure that that one is selected. In this unit, you will be switching back and forth between radians and degrees, because sometimes we'll do questions that your calculator needs to be in radians, and sometimes we'll do a question that your calculator needs to be in degrees. So once you've set that up, when you type sine of 586, you get negative 7.19. So we can write that in, negative 0.719. Cos of 586 degrees, negative 0.695. So these are relatively easy questions because all we're doing is typing things into our calculator. .036. So there's sine, cos, and tan. And they're straightforward because you have your sine, cos, and tan buttons. Do you see on your calculator where you have a cosecant, secant, and cotangent button? No. Don't bother looking really hard because there aren't any. So you have to know which one's a reciprocal of which. So cosecant is 1 over sine. So if I want to figure out cosecant of 586, I'm going to go 1 divided by sine of 586. Negative 1.390. Now, for most of you, you'll have a calculator with a new operating system. You can check if you have a new operating system by pushing alpha and then y equals, because that'll get you to the F1 menu. If this menu comes up, you have a newer operating system. What's nice about this menu is the first one is a fraction, and you can actually write things in a fraction, which is even nicer than what I did in the first part, because sometimes if you have more than one operation in the top of the fraction or the bottom of the fraction, you really have to worry about how you'll put brackets into your calculator in order for it to calculate correctly. If you use the fraction button, you don't have to worry about that, because you can type things, 1 on the top, cos of 586 cos of 586 on the bottom, and get your answer. What will this one be rounded to the nearest thousandth? negative 1.440. Because you'd round that 5 up on the 9 would become a 0, which would make that next number a 4. And rounding it to the nearest thousandth, you would include that 0 when writing it. And the last thing that we're going to do is tangent. So if I want to use that fraction button again, 1 divided by tan of 586.966. Relatively straightforward. I'd like you to do 7B with your calculator. I know that the answer key in the back has exact answers, so don't worry about if the answer don't match up directly. You can check if they are perfect. If the answer key has square root of 3 and you have 1.73, you could type square root of 3 into your calculator and see if it matches up with what you have at 1.73. We are going to keep going.